Welcome to A Word to Wives. This is Donna, and I so appreciate you joining me for part 3 of Have You Lost That Lovin' Feeling? Before we jump in, I just want to state again that I think the action words that we're going to cover can be beneficial for any couple, whether they've lost those loving feelings or not, because, none of us have it all together. We don't have perfect marriages, and so we all need reminders from time to time. Well, in part 2, the 2 action words that we covered were prayer and commit, and so we're just going to pick right up at that third action word, which is talk. And as we know, communication is vitally important to any relationship. There is a quote that says, communication to a relationship is like oxygen is to life. Without it, it dies. And that is so true. But even though communication is so important, it can really be a big challenge. In fact, it is one of the most common complaints that married couples have. And so when you've lost that love and feeling, the challenge to communicate can be even greater. But you can begin to open up those lines of communication by talking through the issues. Talking through the issues, because serious conversation is necessary in order to restore the relationship. And in preparation for that, you want to pray. You want to ask God for the right timing. Ask Him to prepare your hearts so that your conversation will be productive, because this time is about understanding and being understood. It's not about making your point or proving that you were right or anything like that, but it's taking a look at the relationship and saying, how did we lose those loving feelings? How did we get here? And how do we get those feelings back? How do we restore the marriage? As you discuss, you want to be very careful that you don't get bogged down rehashing things that aren't going to move you forward. And if you find that you are just not hearing each other, you're not seeing eye to eye, it might be a good idea to invite a mediator. And maybe it could be your pastor and his wife or another couple that you really respect. Raymond and I had a really interesting situation mediating for a couple. It was actually at a family life conference, and they asked if they could talk to us after the session that day. And we were like, sure. So we sat down with them, and, they had had this conversation many times before, but they were just not hearing each other. And so we just kind of guided them through being able to hear each other. And we just kind of peeled back the layers. And at the end, they did actually get a breakthrough. They were able to hear and understand where the other person was coming from. But what was so interesting is we saw them that next morning, and they were like a new couple. I tell you, especially the wife, her whole countenance was different. But that's what can happen when you get a breakthrough by talking through the issues. Well, this next point I think is very important to all couples, and that is to consistently work on good communication. And a couple of tips here, a few tips. One is seek to be a good listener. Practice listening more than talking. And I know that could be a real challenge as well. But like the saying goes, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth because He wanted us to listen twice as much as we talk. And sometimes we are just not good listeners. We're just thinking about what we're going to say next, or, trying to make our point or make our spouse understand. But we want to seek to be good listeners and not just ignore what your spouse is saying. You don't want to be defensive and just kind of brush off what they're saying, but you want to hear, you want to be receptive and listen, not just with your ears, but with your heart. Couples need to consistently work at creating a safe place for each other, to be able to communicate openly and honestly with each other. Again, this is a struggle. This is not something that's natural for most couples. Raymond and I have been married almost 45 years now. We speak at marriage conferences, but this is not something we have nailed down 100% either. All couples need to work intentionally at having good communication. And then we want to develop the habit of talking to each other kindly. Sometimes couples can get in the habit of talking to each other in ways it's just not nice. Sometimes we can be mean. We can respond in harsh ways. We can use a tone that is irritated or sarcastic, or just be sharp with our tongue. But no, we want to develop the habit of talking kindly to each other. Colossians 4:6 tells us to let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt. And I like that. Always be gracious. So we want to commit to communicating in ways that builds our spouse up, and ways that encourage them, and not ways that tear them down. So you want to be mindful of what you say and how you say it. Well, that fourth action word is time. And here we want to reestablish or establish spending quality time together. And that speaks to companionship. And companionship is important to a oneness marriage. In fact, it's one of the building blocks or one of the pillars of a oneness marriage. I want you to listen to this comment as it relates to companionship. It says, companionship in marriage is an essential emotional need of most couples. This desire, which is also called intimacy, is a universal need that all humans share. It involves spending quality time with the people that are important to us. So again, companionship, that's important. And couples can achieve companionship in various ways that will help them to bond as a couple. And I have a couple of suggestions here. The first one is establishing a date night. And we hear that, often couples need to have a date night. And, it doesn't have to be a date night. It could be a breakfast coffee date. It could be a lunch date. But the point here is couples need that face-to-face time to connect with each other. I think one of the best things that Raymond and I did during those years when we were raising our children was to have a standing Tuesday morning coffee date at the Cracker Barrel. And so that was our time when we came together. If we had issues that we needed to discuss, we did it then. But, most of the time we just sat there and we just laughed and talked and connected over a cup of coffee. So again, just to be clear, now this is not family time. This is husband and wife face-to-face time. Now, if you still have young children in the home and it might be a challenge to find a sitter, your date does not have to be away from home. You can have your date time right there at home. You just put the kids to bed, maybe early, or put them in their room, and then the two of you just sit down and you have that time to connect. Well, another suggestion is to spend time doing things that you both enjoy. Maybe it's working on home projects. Maybe it's cooking meals together, or playing a sport that you both enjoy, walking together, taking long drives together. If you're music lovers like us, that's a great way to spend time together and, maybe reminiscing and connecting over old times as you play music, or just enjoying, a TV series together. And we like to do that as well. And then you want to work on nurturing a friendship between the two of you. That's what this whole idea of companionship is about, developing and nurturing a friendship between the two of you. You want your husband to be your favorite person. And Raymond really is. He is my favorite person. I would rather be with him more than anybody else. And you also want to be your husband's favorite person. You want, when he sees you, to walk in the room for him to think, there she is, not, oh, there she is. But we want to work on that friendship, and spending time together helps us as couples to feel more connected to each other. Well, our fifth action word is touch. And when we've lost that love and feeling, oftentimes we lose the desire to touch. But there's tremendous benefits in physical touching and showing that affection to each other. It's been noted to help regulate your mood and to relieve anxiety. I thought that was interesting. Touch is a powerful way of communicating our emotions in a nonverbal, non-sexual way. And, some couples, rarely touch outside of sexual touch. And so we're talking about intentionality here. Sit near each other when you watch TV. Hold hands when you walk together. I love that. Whenever we walk together, Raymond always, grabs my hand. We hold hands. And that's something that's really special to me. Snuggle next to each other in bed at night, or just reach over and, rub your husband's back, or rub his head or whatever. But you want to reach out and touch, as you're driving in the car together. Touch, show affection as you're sitting next to each other in church, things like that. Look for opportunities to demonstrate your affection for each other, because touching also helps to promote that emotional connection. Well, our next action word is love. And you want to say I love you to each other often. We don't want to be like the man whose wife told him, you never say you love me. And he said, I told you I loved you when we got married at the altar. If anything changes, I'll let you know. No, we don't want to be like that. We want to say I love you often, and not just say it, but find ways to express your love for your spouse. Think about, plan, even pray about creative ways to express your love. And a good place to start might be to understand what his love language is. To understand what that love language is, because when it's expressed, it helps us to feel loved. So we don't want to just say it, but we want our spouse to feel that we love them. So as it relates to those 5 love languages, they are physical touch, words of affirmation, gifts, quality time, and acts of service. So if you don't know your spouse's love language, learn what it is and speak it to him fluently and frequently. And just talking about loving each other, I want to touch on loving each other physically. And when couples have lost that love and feeling, they probably are not being sexually intimate with each other. And then for some couples too, sometimes life just gets so busy that they end up putting that part of their marriage to the back burner. But if that's the case, I encourage you to slowly reestablish intimacy. It's important. It is a good gift from our God given to married couples to enjoy each other. And in fact, the act of lovemaking itself helps to bond us. It's important to making us feel connected to each other. So our last and 7th action word is forgive. And this is huge. It is so important for us all because couples are sometimes wasting a lot of time nursing grudges against each other, holding on to things, sometimes things that happened years ago, and we're just carrying it around instead of making the choice to forgive and release. I heard a comment once, these couples were being interviewed on their marriage, and one man said that he and his wife had to learn how to just forgive each other for being human. And I thought, you know what, that is really true, because in our humanness, we are going to hurt each other. We are going to offend each other. And we need to learn how to say, I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? Just, sometimes we need to forgive each other just for being imperfect people. Raymond often says that as Christians, we should be professional forgivers. And indeed, we should be, because God commands us to forgive. He never gives us permission to hold on to grudges. Ephesians 4:39 says, be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another as God in Christ forgave you. And so God has forgiven us for so much. How can we not forgive each other? I want to share this quote with you. I think it's pretty profound, by Dr. Lewis Smead. And he says, to forgive is to set a prisoner free, only to discover that the prisoner was you. And so sometimes we are in a self-imposed prison because we don't make the choice to forgive. And so if there are things that you have been holding on to, I just encourage you to work through it by God's grace and by the power of the Holy Spirit, and extend forgiveness to your spouse. Now, I understand that for some couples, there might be some deep hurts there, some really deep issues, some deep wounds, maybe even betrayals. And those are things that take time to work through. It may even require counseling. And that's okay. But the point is, you don't want to just walk around holding on to hurts. You want to work through them. You want to get to a place where you can grant and extend forgiveness to each other. Well, in closing, I just want to say, I firmly believe that it is possible for any marriage to be restored. And I firmly believe that any good marriage can be even better. But that doesn't happen by chance. It happens by choice and intentionality. And I think any marriage can benefit from putting these action words into practice: prayer, commit, talk, time, touch, love, and forgiveness. So if you've lost that love and feeling in your marriage, be willing to reach across the distance between the two of you and risk doing some things that may be uncomfortable for you, especially if you've been isolated from each other for a long time. Risk it, because like the saying goes, with great risk comes great reward, and it will be so worth it. So don't give up on your marriage. Don't give up. With God's help and your willingness, you can bring back those love and feelings. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you will comment, like, subscribe. I look forward to sharing with you more in the future. And I'll see you next time. God bless.